Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Bhat Paramahamsa, Parudikacharya Ashtotar to the Srimad Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai, ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa, Parudikacharya Ashtotar to the Srimad Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavini ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai, Grantaraj srimadbhagavatam ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Narayanam namaskritya Narang chaiva narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jai Mudiriye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta Prayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavat Yuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtaki. Okay. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service unto the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord who is glorified in transcendental songs is established as an irrevocable fact. I'm going to take this garland off because I think it may be aggravating my allergy. I'll leave it right here for now. Okay. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 28th day of June, 2018, in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Canto 4, the creation of the Fourth Order. Chapter 2, Daksha curses Lord Shiva. Text number 17. Maitreya Uvacha Vinindhyaivam Sagirisham Aprati Pamavastitam Dakshotapa Upasprishya Krudha Shaptum Pachakrame. Maitreya Uvacha Vinindhyaivam Sagirisham Aprati Pamavastitam Dakshotapa Upasprishya Krudha Shaptum Pachakrame. Maitreya Uvacha Vinindhyaivam Sagirisham Aprati Pamavastitam Dakshotapa Upasprishya Krudha Shaptum Pachakrame. Maitreya Uvacha Vinindhyaivam Sagirisham Aprati Pamavastitam Dakshotapa Upasprishya Saptum Pachakrame. Maitreya Uvacha Vinindhyaivam Sagirisham Aprati Pamavastitam Dakshotapa Upasprishya Krudha Shaptum Pachakrame. Maitreya Uvacha Vinindhyaivam Sagirisham Aprati Pamavastitam Dakshotapa Upasprishya Krudha Shaptum Pachakrame. Maitreya Uvacha Vinindhyaivam Sagirisham Aprati Pamavastitam Dakshotapa Upasprishya Krudha Shaptum Pachakrame. Zachary, do me a favor. See, if these lights are on all up, bring them down like a good, 10%. Yeah, because I don't need, I have them here. Maitreya Uvacha. Maitreya said, Vinindhya, abusing. Evam, thus. Abusing, of course, is verbally abusing. Evam, thus. Saha, he, Daksha. Girisham, Shiva. Apratipam, without any hostility. Avastitam, remaining. Dakshaha, Daksha. Atha, now. Apaha, water. Upasprishya, washing hands and mouth. Krudha, angry. Shaptum, to curse. Pachakrame, began to. Translation. The sage Maitreya continued, thus Daksha, seeing Lord Shiva sitting as if against him, washed his hands and mouth and cursed him in the following words. No purport, text 18. I am to Deva Yajana, Indropendraadibir Bhavaha, Sahabhagam Nalabdatam, Deva Deva Ganadamaha. So Daksha continued, the demigods are eligible to share in the oblations of sacrifice, but Lord Shiva, who is the lowest of all the demigods, should not have a share. Purport. Because of this curse, Shiva was deprived of his share in the oblations of Vedic sacrifices. It was due to the curse of Daksha, Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti comments in this connection, that Lord Shiva was saved from the calamity of taking part with other demigods who were all materialistic. Lord Shiva is the greatest devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and it is not fitting for him to eat or sit with materialistic persons like the demigods. Thus, the curse of Daksha was indirectly a blessing, for Shiva would not have to eat or sit with other demigods who were too materialistic. There is a practical example set for us by Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, who used to sit on the side of a latrine to chant Hare Krishna, japa. Many materialistic persons used to come and bother him and disturb his daily routine of chanting. So to avoid their company, he used to sit by the side of a latrine where materialistic persons would not go because of the filth and the obnoxious smell. However, Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj was so great that he was accepted as the spiritual master of such a great personality as His Divine Grace Om Vishnupad Sri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj. The conclusion is that Lord Shiva behaved in his own way to avoid materialistic persons who might disturb him in his prosecution of devotional service. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. Forgive me, time out for a little necessary function here. Sorry about that. Okay. So, Daksha is culminating his diatribe with an actual curse of Lord Shiva. Now, as we have seen in other places in Srimad Bhagavatam, when an inferior person curses a superior person, that curse redounds back on the original curser, and he learns a good lesson. So that's what's going to happen with Daksha as we go on. But here let's just focus on the character of Shiva and how he is behaving during all this. Now, we've just read a whole series of verses in which Daksha is escalating his insults against Shiva, and Shiva is just sitting there. You don't hear anything about Shiva retaliating with some kind of counter curse. Now, just contrast what you have today, the so-called leaders of society. As soon as there's some slight, a little slight against our exalted dear leader, we call him a dear leader, immediately a whole blather of insults and reaction comes. Disproportionate, really, to what has been cursed. This is the sign of the deepest mode of ignorance. As I mentioned, one who is quick to feel offended is definitely in the mode of ignorance. Where there is no offense, you'll take offense. And if there is a slight offense, you'll take it as an enormous offense and escalate it to maybe even a war. You know, these are the way things happen. So that's what happens when everyone's conducted by the modes of nature, is that you become falsely proud of your physical body, your prestige, your beauty, or whatever. And anyone who even may not even be saying anything or doing anything, you're always looking for someone who's going to bring you down, because you're not really secure in your own estimation of yourself. It's all just a big bubble. It's a big false estimation. So deep down inside you know that, and so to maintain the facade you become very violent against others who are innocent. So that's what we have here. Daksha is not a demon, but he's gotten completely wrapped up in this whole thing that he thinks is an insult. And did we just read, or are we going to read in the next verse? Yeah, I think it was the one I missed yesterday because I didn't feel well. Yes, how he even insulted Brahma, right? By calling him Parameshti instead of father. You remember that? That was yesterday. That he dishonored him, not so directly, but it was substantial. Because Brahma had encouraged him to marry his daughter, to give his daughter to Shiva, and so he's looking around to cast blame, and he indirectly insults Brahma by not acknowledging that he's his actual father. So this is what happens when anger takes over. Anger is such a destructive force. We remember from Bhagavad Gita. Everything starts with lust. Our whole entanglement in this material world begins with kama. with material desire, and goes from there, expands. So it's Dayato Vishayan Pungsa Sangastesh Badayate Sangat Sanjayate Kama. By allowing oneself to contemplate the object of the senses in a mood of enjoyment, because we see all kinds of objects of senses, but if you don't contemplate them, focus on them in the enjoying mood, then you chant Hare Krishna, then you're able to maintain your equilibrium. But Dayato Vishayan Pungsa, meditating on the object of the senses, Vishayan means enjoyable sense objects, one develops attachment to them. Who can deny it? And from that attachment, if you cultivate it, then it becomes kama. It becomes a very strong desire to enjoy. But that kama can never be fully satisfied. It's like a fire, described in the 3rd chapter. And it keeps growing and expanding and going here and there. And therefore, krodha comes. Kamat krodho abhijayate. And that's what's happened here to Daksha. So that krodha, bhavati sammoha, completely bewilders you. Prabhupada mentions it in the purport, and it's obvious. We've had probably experience in our own lives. Become angry, you'll do something that you may regret the rest of your life. Prabhupada describes in one lecture how someone may even kill his own man, he says, and brother, your father, and then what? Then you come to your senses and what have I done? And you've ruined your life practically. So this is the nature of material life. It's like very dangerous to allow oneself to be affected by the modes of nature and come into this point. So that anger has completely covered Daksha's real discretion and his intelligence, and he's insulted Brahma, somewhat indirectly, but still insulted him. And now he's going to curse Lord Shiva, who's actually, if you look at him, analyze carefully, he's even a greater position than Brahma in terms of demigods. So this is what's happened now, and he's cursed him, and he's cursed him not to get a share of the oblations. Now, as Prabhupada explains, this is actually a blessing curse, and we find these elsewhere in the Bhagavatam. What's another famous one? A blessing curse. Think Narada. Think another Kuvara, Manigriva. Remember them? So Narada Muni was traveling in the heavenly planets, and he came across this Nalakuva and Manigriva, the sons of Kuvera, sporting in what's the name of the river? I forget. So they're in a celestial river, and there's the Apsaras, and they're playing and they're enjoying. Prabhupada's euphemism. So they're enjoying just like elephants, in the water. They're naked. So Narada Muni, come on, Narada Muni, immediately, the ladies who were not as intoxicated, they're also drinking somaras, their eyes are rolling. So they weren't as intoxicated, immediately covered themselves. They said, this is the exalted Narada Muni, But the boys, the playboys, probably, that's wealthy sons of a wealthy man who have no discretion and who have all facility for enjoyment. That's the definition of a playboy. So they didn't cover themselves, and Narada Muni has a wonderful, I like to call it a soliloquy, a series of verses, it comes in a play, in which he really describes the dangers of too much wealth. How it intoxicates you, it covers your knowledge, you can enjoy all kinds of sense gratification, it's very damaging. And that's why we see one of the prerequisites of being a serious devotee is to live as simply as possible. And if you have wealth, then be sure to try to engage as much of it directly in the service of the Lord. Build a temple if you have facilities, or support the temple or whatever. And purify that wealth, because if the wealth is just sitting there, it's sure to be a temptation for sense gratification. So these boys, they were ideal enjoyers, Well, they weren't evil, but they were indiscreet. So Narada Muni, after this wonderful description of the dangers of too much wealth, he then curses them. But he's aware of how it's a blessing curse, because he turns them into these trees, 2 Yamalarjun trees, but he has them planted in the place on earth that will be in Braja, where Nanda Maharaj will have his home, and Krishna as a child will be crawling in the backyard and pull him down later on. So that all happens. So it's a blessing curse, and they realize that. Now you can imagine one of the parts of the blessing was that they can remember. They didn't have the consciousness of trees, which is very, very rudimentary and covered, but they actually could remember for all those years what they'd done. So by the time they were released, they were purified, and they were very humble, and they offered beautiful prayers to Krishna, and they went to the spirit, back to the heavenly planets, but they were full-on devotees. So that's one blessing curse. And what's another one? Just thinking. Actually, Prabhupada, gave us this. He didn't give us the verse, but he quoted it. This verse, Yasyaham nagunnami hadashe tadanang shanai. This is spoken by Krishna to Yudhishthira, I think, near the end of the 10th canto. And Yasyaham, Krishna says, to those whom I show my real mercy, I gradually take away all their wealth. And that's not the end of it. And then their wife and their children don't like him anymore because they can't support him, and they kick them. It's like the Avanti Brahman. He's a perfect example, the Avanti Brahman. He was very wealthy, but he was kind of a nonsense, And then he loses all his wealth, he gets kicked out, and eventually he sees that as a great opportunity to take sannyas. And his verse is the one that the sannyasis memorized, his actual verse. So, the general principle for devotees is to see these reverses as Krishna's blessings. It's kind of that verse, yat tatenu kampam susamikshimano bunjana evatnukutam vipakam. Key verse by Lord Brahma, that the devotee is always looking for the mercy of the Lord, and another understanding, he's seeing everything as the mercy of the Lord, even the reverses, even the difficulties. First of all, understanding, this is a result of something I did in my past life. This is kind of a karmic reaction. And we know that when you become a serious devotee, you're not suffering and enjoying your actual karma. That Krishna is managing it to help you further your devotional service. So sometimes, things happen that may be painful, physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever. And if we're Krishna conscious and we understand, when we're able to be strong enough, we'll see that, this is a lesson Krishna is giving me in detachment, humility, and submission. And that's, you see the value of that. If you can actually embrace that mentality, that consciousness, then you'll never be tempted to think ill of Krishna or complain. The materialistic, those who are materialists, who are simply pious enough to go to church or whatever, they're going for materialistic reasons. They fit into that category of going chatur vadabhajan sukritarojana arto jigyasur artarti jnani. And mostly the arta, and the artarti. They're looking for relief from the miseries of this world. They're looking for some fellowship, somehow to get away from the alienation, and coming, and they have their own tribe, okay, we're Christians, isn't that? There's various levels. They're not all like that. But it's basically into this kaitava dharma, because what do they pray for? What do they pray for? They're not praying nadanang nadanang nasundari, simply for your service, birth after birth. Because without the details of the name, form, qualities, and pastimes of Krishna, there's no way of really developing love for God. You may call it that, but there's nothing like what we aim for here in Bhakti Yoga, an actual loving relationship with the Supreme Lord. And it's only that can truly sublimate all of your lower tendencies and eradicate, the lower things completely and take you back to God. So that materialistic, that's called kaitava dharma, materialistic religion. It's better than no religion. At least you recognize the existence of God. But you can go birth after birth with that. And come on. Some of the biggest atrocities in this world were committed in the name of religion. Completely misguided. The Crusades. How corrupt was that? Where, you get all these knights, pushed on by the leaders of the church to go, I guess, part of it to liberate the Holy Land, whatever it was. But all along the way, they got diverted. They sacked Constantinople. It was just like completely corrupt in the name of religion. So, Daksha, he's not a demon, but he's gotten, he shows an example of someone who becomes too proud of his position, and he disrespects a great person. He doesn't understand the nature of a person. This is one of the things that really is important in devotee etiquette, to understand who's who and where the deference relies, and how one should honor great souls, and you know, always recognizing one's subordinate position. As I mentioned in several classes, you know, the actual obeisances, we're all offering obeisances so many times during the day, but the big significance of that, like I was discussing with Balaram, how that song we sing for Guru Puja, there's various little anomalies in the translation, and some of them are pretty important. Just like the word savadhana. You ask any Bengali, what does it mean? It doesn't mean great respect, right? It's with great attention. Savadhana, don't they have it on the roads? Pay attention when you're driving. Yeah, with great care and attention. Now think what that means. It means when you offer obeisances, Sri Guru Chadana Padma Kevala Bhagavan, Bando Nri Savadhana Mate. I offer my obeisances with great attention. It means that you understand what, first of all, what the meaning of the words are that you're saying, who it is you're, and what the significance of this namaha is. I don't know, you weren't here. I was just, some time ago, I was looking into this book that Gopi Purananda Guru translated, called the Krishna Leela Stava by Sanatana Goswami. It's a summary of Krishna's Vrindavan Leela in about 400 verses, and interspersed in there's 108 obeisances within the verses. Very nice book. But you know, that didn't sell very well, but still it's great. And then in the beginning he has a purport commentary where he describes, he quotes from Padma Purana, I think, about the different levels of obeisances and what the deep meaning of it is. And this is one of these things where you analyze the word nama, you know, nama, not mine. This body is not mine, it's yours. You know, think what that means. Do with it as you will. You know, you're surrendering to someone. Well, how many of us actually think like that? But that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to cut through, or take a sledgehammer to that big granite mountain of false ego that we've developed from millions of births, you know. And with the physical as well as the oral and the mental contemplation of what we're doing when we bow down. Because that's what bhakti is all about, is to subordinate your ego and your interest to Krishna through the medium of his sincere representatives, pure representatives. So, but that, you know, that has to constantly be renewed, especially when we're just developing bhakti, because the false ego feeds on the material desire and the pride and all of these qualities that we're seeing developing here, that develop or manifest by daksha. So as always, Bhagavatam is meant to give us a big lesson here. There's a great lesson to be learned, and one of them is the dangers of pride, dangers of becoming proud of your position, and all of this stuff, and then, you know, directing that pride and that envy toward great souls, which is disastrous for your spiritual life. Here we'll see Daksha, he loses his head. Ultimately, because Shiva, he doesn't care. He's completely tolerant. He doesn't say a word. But what about his followers? He's got all these bhutas and pretas, and he's got some very powerful ones. You know, and after this whole thing escalates later on, when already it'll escalate, you'll see this counter cursing that's going to take place here. Okay, you know, but Daksha just maintains his enmity, and later on, when he has this big shindig, and Sati goes, and she sees that he's unrepentant, he's not showing any respect to Shiva, and she just says, well, I don't want to keep my relationship with you, and so she commits self-immolation, the first sati rite, as you will, and that's it. You know, when that gets back to Shiva's abode and all his minions, and Virabhadra, you know, is manifest, and he comes out, and it's pretty disastrous for Daksha. It's almost like, you know, we can see this in our own history. You know, I'm talking about not ISKCON history, but the world. How, why is Daksha proud? Because he has certain power, he has position, right? So, on a material plane, historically, you have nations that, what is a nation? You know, people are born in a certain place, they may have the same language, and they completely identify. It's total mode of ignorance. They're not identifying as spirit souls. They're identifying as totally on the bodily platform. Boma ijidi. Prabhu to focus this on this point of the verse. Yasyatma buddhi kunape tvidatuke sodi kalatrashu boma ijidi tirta buddhi salile nakarcha janesha bigesha saeva gokara. Now gokara means two things. It can mean, there's two kinds of compounds. Bahuvritti means they are equal. A cow or an ass, Prabhu does it. But it can also be an ass that carries the fodder for the cow, a go-kara. Because I saw it defined that way one time. I like to think of it that way, because the cows are worshipable. Yeah. Anyway, so the point is that anyone who has these mentalities listed here is animalistic, is not really a human being. This is spoken by Krishna, this verse. So one of them is, I won't go into all of them, is Boma Ijadi, which has different meanings, but one of the main meanings Prabhupada always focuses is to think that the place where you're born is worshipable. You know, oh, we're Greenlanders. You know, who wants to be, you know, going up where the ice is? You know, but still, we're very proud. You know, so that Boma Ijadi has periodically with regular as clockwork led to wars between people. You know. Did you ever read about what was his name? The one who invaded Genghis Khan, you know, just the name is frightening. Genghis Khan, you know, to come out of Mongolia of all places, and you know why they were able to conquer? They went all across Russia because they had the horses. This was before everyone had horses, so they're on horseback, you know, with their weapons, no guns. And they just went right across the whole huge Russian thing all the way to Europe, you know. Now they didn't have an electronics, so how are they going to manage all that, you know? So it fell apart, but it took at least 100 years. But it was horrible. I mean, they're just slaughtering people left and right, you know, like that. So that's the result of that. Now in the modern day, we're much more advanced. Not really, not at all. We're advanced in our ability to cause more disaster and more, you know, havoc. But all these bombs are in everybody's hands. And now our glorious, you know, dear leader is saying, oh yeah, we should weaponize space. You know, people have the sanity to think, well, do we really want, you know, nuclear bombs going on top of us all the time? And how are they going to power it? It has to be by nuclear reactors. That's the only energy that they can use is going to have enough, you know. You know, what happens if one of them comes down and has all this radioactive? So this is all the result of this same mentality. This pride of body and pride in one's strength and one's ability to build up one's false power. It's all based on its false ego and false pride. So Krishna consciousness is really the only force that can counter this, because it all starts deep in one's consciousness. That's where it all lies. If one is embraced the mode of ignorance and passion, and is, in other words, like a demon, you know, completely against God, or that there can be any competition, then that person becomes a force for widespread unhappiness around the world. And Krishna periodically comes in order to counteract that. Now he comes personally, or in the present age, he's come as his holy name, as this movement, and we're, like it or not, we're the troops that have to carry on this battle, not to kill anybody, but to kill their demonic mentality. That's the idea behind Harinam Sankirtan. So the lesson here in the Bhagavatam, this passage of Bhagavatam, is the dangers, you know, just another instance of the danger of becoming proud of one's position and directing one's ire at exalted souls. That causes great havoc in one's life and spiritual life. Every day we think these 10 offenses, blaspheming devotees who've dedicated their life. You know, that means the little, so-called little devotees as well as the big devotees. And Krishna is watching. He's completely watching us at every moment in our hearts. And as soon as we are, fail to check the tendency to lash out at other devotees, we find it much more very, very difficult to practice Krishna consciousness. The thing that brings us forward day after day is the taste, is the whatever pleasure we're getting from chanting, the actual experience of bhakti. It may be very rudimentary, but it's enough to keep us going. But that can be taken away. That's a gift of Krishna. And that's why, on the positive side, helping other devotees and trying to serve them and be friendly toward them is so pleasing to Krishna. That's the great advantage, the opportunity of having an ashram, is you're actually able to serve Krishna and serve devotees. And by that service to the devotees, Krishna becomes very pleased and gives you so much more taste and the intelligence to follow everything. It really works like that. But, and Prabhupada, when he first came, the greatest gift he was giving, and this is in one of the offerings that I worked on. I think was it Bhurijan Prabhu who said that? I think so. That Prabhupada's greatest gift was he himself, giving the opportunity of people to serve him and become attached to him. A pure devotee like that. I mean, they didn't know what was going on, but they felt very strongly that they wanted to please Prabhupada, and that they, loved him. The love was moving things along, and that's the engine that makes bhakti go. That's why it said again in this song we sing every morning. We should be singing it. Shri Guru Charanarate Ese Uttamagati. That the greatest means of advancement is attachment for the lotus feet of the Guru. Because after all, think of it just on a very ordinary basis. If you like somebody, you tend not to do anything that's going to highly displease them, because then they won't like you. That's I mean, it's not that you don't maybe think that way, but that's what you feel. You like somebody and you want to do something for them. And if it happens to be a pure devotee who you like, your great fortune, the doors of great fortune opens up. What's that verse? Prasangam madhanam bhasham atmana kavayo vidu. Sehe basada shukuto moksha dvaram apavitam. This is the first verse of what I dubbed as Sadhu Sangashtika, way back in chapter 25 of the third canto when we read it months ago. So prasangam, we're bound by all these very great attachments. They're like ropes, very strong ropes. That's what prasanga means. Strong attachment. Atmana kavayo. So those who are wise, they know that the soul's attachments need to be redirected toward the great souls. And that opens up the doors of liberation. Because if you're attached even a little bit to a great soul, then you're most likely to listen to them. And if you listen to them, you're going to hear transcendental sound, and you get inspired to serve and like that. So that attachment goes on, of course, to the great souls, but we're surrounded by great souls. I'm surrounded by great souls. I'm not a great soul. So what we do, and just any little friendly thing we do, or normal thing we do to keep the ashram, this is serving each other, and that's feeding your bhakti. Conversely, if we don't control our anger and we become, a disturbance, that will take an axe to our bhakti creeper. Okay, it is now 8:30. I am going to read this again. I think there were two verses we read. The sage Maitreya continued, thus Daksha, seeing Lord Shiva sitting as if against him, he was all in his head, washed his hands and mouth and cursed him in the following words. The demigods are eligible to share in the oblations of sacrifice, but Lord Shiva, who is the lowest of all the demigods, should not have a share. Oh boy, okay, we'll see the aftermath as days go on. Any comments, questions? Balaranji. I wondered about that. I said, well, shouldn't it be a long I, Girisha, because he's the lord of the mountain, the Mount Kailash, I thought. But it's something else going on here. Do you have any insight in that? How does that break down? Girisha. It has something to do with, I think, Mount Kailash. Yeah, the mountain is. But the thing is, it doesn't quite work. Giri Isha becomes a long I without that. But I can research for you. I'll try to find out how that works. Why is Girisha? let's call it that for now. But I think there's something else going on. If you're going to have Giri Isha, there's no way it can't be. It can be short. It has to be long. Giri Isha. But I can. That's the kind of thing I can track down for you. I have a little crew of Sanskritists in the internet that I can consult. Okay. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Haribol. Mostly in India. The main one is, this school that Gopi ran for